Hello, so it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, but I thought to go over the current Super Nintendo games I've collected since my last video, which is already getting close to 2 years old, I think. It's probably just a number of months off, but I thought it would be fun to talk about the games that I've acquired since that time. So, and the other part about it is, unfortunately, if you're into collecting the authentic copies, the original games, this video probably isn't going to be for you because most of these games were bought off of Etsy or other places. I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Move this man!
But I just thought it would be fun because I like making memories and talking about some of these games here and there, so I don't have a whole lot of space for that typically, so I just thought it'd be fun. And I'll just start off by talking about this one right here called Final Fight Guy. So it's basically just the first Final Fight game, it's the original, but you get to play as Guy, and I just kind of spotted this on Etsy one day, and I wanted to go for it. This game typically goes for around $100 authentic. It's probably a lot more since then, actually, because I haven't looked it up in a while. This was like back in maybe 2012, 2013, one of those years. It was quite a long time ago, so... But yeah, they had some kind of exclusive release of this game back then. I don't know the whole story. I read about it before, but it's been a while. But anyway, here's another game that actually wasn't released in the US. Mega Man and Bass. This was released in Japan on the Super Famicom, but it was also eventually released in America in the form of the Game Boy Advance game. So, and they basically, I guess, this was also off of Etsy. And they must have put an English translation onto a Super Nintendo cartridge, because it does have all the sound effects and music of the Super Famicom game, so I think that's a really cool find. I think it's also much better than playing it on a small Game Boy Advance screen. But yeah, it's something that I'm really glad to have been able to find, because I feel like a lot of the Super Famicom titles, there are a lot of really good ones out there. So I'm thankful to find a lot of these games fit on NTSC carts, which are basically these cartridges. And yeah, so here I've got Super Bomberman. I like the alternate artwork on this cart. This is another Etsy find. This was, trying to remember, it had a different cover, obviously. The US copy, I could probably throw that on the screen. But I just thought this cover was really cool looking, and it looked a little closer to the second game. The artwork I've been released for the second game, that is. But yeah, there's another fun game for you. And here's an interesting title which was released on the Super Famicom, but even on the Super Famicom it had a very limited release, and it's probably one of the most rare games you can get out there. But here it is on another American Super Nintendo shell. It's Rendering Ranger R2. So this game, unfortunately, this particular repro, which I did get off of Etsy also, it does have some issues. It usually gets to a point where when the screen goes black between stages or scene transition sometimes, like even just leaving the options menu, I've had this happen, the game will suddenly crash. I think there's a flaw in how this was put onto this cartridge. But thankfully the game has a password system, and it isn't something that I've encountered like repeatedly, like over and over. So it is playable, but it does have that issue. So, but for the most part, I do feel it's bearable.
No problem.
It's something I can get through with passwords, so not the biggest deal. And here's another one I know a lot of people like, and somebody asked about it previously, Zombies Ate My Neighbors. It's a Konami title. Well, actually, it's Konami published. I believe it was developed by LucasArts. And yeah, I actually saw this one at my local game store called Blue Dragon Video Games. They had it for around $40. I wouldn't have minded grabbing it there, but there was a day when I went to the mall, and there's a place called Hudson's Games, and they actually do sell some repro carts. They sell them for pretty cheap though, because, well, obviously they are reproductions of original cartridges. So I picked this up there, and it was only $20. So I just figured, why not? You know, I like supporting all of the different places. You can find a lot of really good titles for an affordable price there. And speaking of which, here's another one that I picked up from that same store. Earthbound. So yeah, this was also $20, also a repro. And I used to have the authentic cartridge a long time ago, like back in around maybe 2007 or 2008. my friend had it, and he gave this game to me because he had a hard time figuring it out. So he just gave it to me. I played it a little bit. I didn't get really that into it. So some years later, early 2010s, I gave it back to him. And unfortunately, this game, along with his whole Super Nintendo collection, were stolen from a storage unit he had. So that was really sad, but I decided over time, just hearing so much about this game, obviously this game has a cult status among gamers, and a lot of the things I've heard about it kind of made me curious to want to check it out again, give it another fair shake. So I honestly have been playing it, and I've been enjoying it a little better this time, even though I am getting stuck at different points, but you know, it's nice to have it in the collection again. Whoops, move the camera a little bit. Let's see. So now a lot of these, well actually really the rest of these games I want to mention were bought off of a website called AliExpress. I was kind of wary or uncertain about it because I didn't know a whole lot about the website, and I had a friend who was also asking about it. I figured I'd take the risk and start buying quite a few games on there because these are games that are typically very expensive elsewhere. So
Wow!
I'm going to start off by talking about Artie Lightfoot. So this game, I looked it up on price charting, and apparently this game was somewhere around $10 to $20, in the $20 range for a number of years. All throughout the 2010s, it seems like it was actually pretty affordable. And it wasn't until recent years this one skyrockets somewhere up to like $340 I've seen it for. Maybe it's a little less, I don't know, but I've just kind of seen some listings that put this for a lot of money. But it's actually a fun little obscure platformer, I guess. I like the graphic style, the art style, and the music, but I just really was curious about this game, so I wanted to give it a shot. This was only $10 on AliExpress, so I'm very glad, very happy to have this one. And I should probably make another pile, actually. Don't get stacked too high. We don't want to do that. And here's another one I was curious about. Pirates of Dark Water. I really loved this show back then in the 90s. I don't remember it too well, but I do remember that this was a show I thought was really cool, and I really liked it, and apparently it had a beat-em-up title for the Super Nintendo. So I felt like it was worth looking into, and I've been having fun with it. I do think it's a worthy title, so I think that's pretty cool. That's also AliExpress. A lot of these games were actually $10 each, so that's pretty insane. And I think this one, by the way, goes for around $100 if you're going authentic. But yeah, I've kind of gotten past that point, because a lot of games I used to save up for, I've actually paid upwards of $240 for a game disc only, because I actually have Go-Go Hyper Grind for the GameCube, for example, and the game's just insanely expensive.
Oh my god!
And I have Hagane, which thankfully I bought for an affordable price. I talked about it previously in my other video. But yeah, I'm just kind of at this point where I want to start getting some of these games. This is Aero the Acrobat 2. I think it's a neat little platformer. I want to try and play it a little more. I only got to play it a little bit the other day, but I had to start unplugging all my electronics because we had a thunderstorm. We've already had some appliances get fried by thunderbolt, or lightning bolt, I should say. But yeah, so that's another one I wanted to check out, and I'm hitting the camera again. And here's another little platformer I actually played last night for a friend. I streamed it. It's An American Tail, Philo Goes West. I remember the movie. I watched that as a kid. I grew up with it in the 90s. Never knew about the game until later, but I figured it was worth checking out and playing. And once again, this is probably around $80. I'm glad I didn't pay $80 for that, because it's a fun game, but I don't think I would spend that much money for it. And this one, I was kind of inspired from a friend who talked about it. I actually have played this before a long time ago, not on the Super Nintendo, but I just kind of tried it out randomly through emulator. Zero, the Kamikaze Squirrel. This one's kind of up there with Artie in the price, somewhere around $300+. I'm glad I didn't pay that much for it, but it's a fun little game. I think it's worth investigating. You know, I mean, I still need to take a deeper dive in playing it, but a lot of these games, I kind of got to a point where I was just kind of playing them a little bit just to test them and make sure they work. And I tell my friend about it, so he knows that, yeah, these games are working games, well, working copies, yeah. And now here's another one. I actually did see this one at Blue Dragon, my local game store, for around close to $100. But yeah, once again, I found it on the site, The Adventures of Batman and Robin. I was curious about this one for a long time. I remember the show, certainly back then. I watched it in the 90s, but I never played the game, so I think it's really cool to be able to check out a lot of these titles. And they're just getting up there more and more in price. Here's another one I used to have, Final Fight 2. I used to have the authentic copy. I think it was around $40 at the time. And I don't remember what I did with it. Well, I know I traded it for something. I don't remember what I was trying to get. But yeah, I just kind of felt like I'm going to give this one another shot. I remember it being fun, so I just figured why not, because I saw it on the website and I was buying from. And I might have to turn this just a little bit so it doesn't get crowded out by any other stacked games. But here's the other one, Final Fight 3. I haven't had this one though. And this one's pretty much up there, the 100s, 200s in price. I've seen it. Just kind of varies here and there. But yeah, a lot of these old games are just going up. This is another one from AliExpress. Works pretty well, really cool. Actually, one thing I think is really cool about this one is it does have an auto two-player mode. So you play it single player, but the computer takes control of the second player for you. So it's kind of cool. You can play it two-player even if you're alone.
Nice.
And one more game, well, kind of two more, well, really one more game, but two more cartridges. I'll talk about it in a little bit. But here's another really cool one, Space Megaforce. I was honestly curious about this one for a long time, and it's kind of sad because I remember this one being somewhere around $50 or so, way more affordable than it is now. It's somewhere around $200, $300. I've even seen it go for $600. But this was just, once again, just $10 on AliExpress. It's a really fun game, though, and it's a vertical shooter. I actually felt like there were some vertical shooters I was curious about that I wanted to look up. One of them was Strike Gunner STG. I used to have that one, but I traded it. And the other one was Aero Fighters, which I did pick up, and I showed it in the other video. But this was one I was also curious about. I did play it a little bit over emulator just to try it out, but I just didn't take the dive at the time. I kind of wish I did. But anyway, it's here now, and it's fun, and I'm glad I get to play it. So there was one more cartridge I forgot to show in my other Super Nintendo video. It's not technically a game in itself, but it's a fun little device you can use. It's the Super Game Boy. I don't remember if I showed this last time, but I figured I'd show it here. I have Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. I'm trying not to say Link to the Past. But yeah, I just think it's really cool to be able to have the Game Boy library at large that you can play on the Super Nintendo. So I figured I'd show that off as a little bonus. So there you go. Just one last little look. Good stack of games right there. And whoops, slide over too much. And there you have it. These are all the games that I have as of May 2024. Thanks for watching, and hello from my little buddy here.
Big brain
and
time.
Yes, once again, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.